Welcome everyone back to the Pathways to Success podcast. I am super excited about the guests that we have on the show today. Quite the incredible power couple, and I'd like to introduce them to you now. So first we have Crystal Dwyer Hansen. She is one of the leading success and wellness coaches in the country. She is also the author of Skinny Life, The Secret to Being Physically, Emotionally, and Spiritually Fit. And of course, the legendary Mark Victor Hansen, who is widely known as an inspirational and motivational speaker, trainer, author, and serial entrepreneur, perhaps best known as the founder and co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul book series, which has sold more than 500 million copies worldwide. Together, Crystal and Mark have teamed up to co-author their new book, Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny, a self-help journey about learning the art and science of asking questions and how it can completely transform your life. Mark and Crystal, welcome to the Pathways to Success podcast. How are you?
Thank you, Julian. We're great.
We're delighted to be with you and everybody watching that's trying to make America infinitely better with entrepreneurship, where you take little value and make it a big value to the marketplace, yourself, the future, and hopefully create a fortune.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to ask, current events, how are you all dealing? How has this perhaps maybe shaped any paradigms that you see? How are things going on your side?
Well, we feel really fortunate, Julian, that we've always had a really strong spiritual practice of, prayer and meditation. And so, there are always issues that come up in life, personal crises. And so I think for us, we're dealing with it like we always would with any kind of a crisis or difficulty in life. And that is making sure that we're spending time really reflecting on what matters in that prayer and meditation time, and really counting our blessings, spending time in appreciation, because at times like this, when it seems like we've lost everything, our thinking can go completely negative because we're so focused on the loss, and then the fear comes in and it starts to overtake our thinking. Mm-hmm. So it's important to start your day. I would just really recommend this to everyone. I'm a transformational life coach and clinical hypnotherapist, and just really getting a hold of your thought patterns, because they can bring you down or they can bring you up. And I always say, let's make our minds work for us, not against us. So taking that time, which is what we do every morning, to just be still and, be in the moment, be now and say, we're okay right now. Everything's fine. In this moment, we're fine. This is all we have this moment. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but right now we're fine. And then spending time in gratitude. Like, we have so much to be thankful for: our family, our health, our vision, every little thing you have to be thankful for. And I think that's really a powerful way for people to start. Look around you, the people in your life, the people you have to love. So that's what works for us. It always has, and it's continuing to work for us, and the world will come roaring back and we'll be ready.
Yeah. I love that. Well, having had some time to reflect, can you start to already see a kind of a meaning for you, for the world? What do you think about that?
Well, I think first of all, we're teaching and ask, 3 parts of asking: ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. So my own story coming out of a crisis is I went bankrupt in 1974 and lost $2 million that quick. My best, worst experience. And so I asked myself, what do I really want to do after hiding under the sheets for 6 months and being afraid to answer the telephone for another debt collector? And what I said is, I want to really be a professional, motivational, educational, inspirational speaker. So I was living in Hicksville, Long Island, New York. And I asked my 4 roommates, we were living at super cheap, but I said, any of you guys know anyone that's young, that's not a cotton top, that's not a doctor, lawyer, or celebrity? And they said, yeah, there's this young kid, maybe a few years older than you, Chip Collins, talking in Hauppauge, Long Island, and he's wow. So I got my little beat up Volkswagen, bankruptcy courts and not taken, raced out there, listened to the kid and said, hey, I want to do what you do. And that's the point. I asked myself, I'd obviously been asked, and now I ask my roommates, ask others, and then I'd ask God, what is my destiny? Because our book subtitle is going the bridge from your dreams to your destiny. And we think everybody has a destiny. We also believe that in these critical times, it's critical that everybody slow down, meditate, get silent. Like my wife was just saying, prayer and meditation, and saying, what is my greatest, grandest, most terrific, loomingly relevant destiny? Because opportunities are going to explode. I believe that this decade, we're going to do 50 trillion worth of business. Stuff that we're not even thinking about right now. We can talk about it through intrinsic to what we're talking about today, but it comes out of the correct asking.
Wow. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the book and really start to establish the premise and some baseline of definitions. The title of the book is Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. What is a destiny?
Well, I think it's the ultimate purpose for which each of us were made.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's interesting because that sometimes evolves. It continues to evolve throughout your lifetime, which is why it's so important to ask, because once we reach one part of our destiny, usually we've grown, we've evolved, and then something bigger, better, grander comes in front of us. And that's sort of the nature of the universe, isn't it? I mean, if we say we're created in the image of our creator, right? We're creators too. We're always evolving. The universe is always expanding, and so are we.
Mhm.
And so we literally felt like, you know, people are here. We all have these dreams in our hearts, and we all have a purpose and a destiny. So sometimes we just get stuck. We just get stuck and we feel like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I can't even see my way out of this. So we start to descend. And so asking is this simple tool, question by question. We start to get an idea. You know, you ask the question, you get an illumination, a solution comes to you, an understanding, a new understanding. And so step by step, you start to move across that bridge, this literal bridge from your dreams to your destiny. And as we started to, you know, interview people and sort of peel apart our own lives, we saw that this is a very real thing. This is a very powerful tool, probably one of the most powerful yet simple tools that you have in your life if you learn to use it correctly.
And what would you say to any of our listeners who might feel sort of hopeless and going through adversity and feel like they don't have a purpose, they don't have a mission, they don't have a destiny? What would you say to them?
What you got to do is, like when I was bankrupt and upside down, I kept saying the third thing is, you know, ask God, God, what is your destiny for me? Because God has a destiny. If you're alive, I believe God has a destiny for you and I. And there are a few people out there maybe without any spiritual basis, but 99% of us have some spiritual basis. And atheists go into a foxhole and they immediately find God. It's a fascinating thing because I was in Vietnam, so I'm real clear.
Wow.
And we're there twice in the last 2 years talking to tens of thousands. Anyhow, the fascinating thing is, I said, what do I really want to do in my heart of heart, God? And he said, look, be a professional speaker. I learned how to do it. I went to that guy, Chip Collins. I said, please, can I ask you how to do the business? He said, look, kid, the chance you make it is 1 in 1,000, you know, but I'll tell you exactly what to do if you stay out of the real estate business and you go into life insurance, which is a bottomless pit, and you do little agencies. There are 1,800 of those companies. There are tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of agents. You'll never finish training. And I started it not knowing what life insurance was, not knowing what a premium was, not knowing what a CLU was. Now it has a nice name, but the joke they say is you're cunning, lonely, and unhappy. And the point is, everybody out there that's hanging on by their fingernails has got to start asking new questions and say, hey, wait a second. The yin and the yang sign says, here's crisis, this side's opportunity. So if you get the biggest crisis, you have the biggest opportunities, and they're looming, but you've got to get out of what my wife's just talking about, and I'll redefine it as a pity party and go to what is going to be magnificent, what's going to be wonderful, because we're about to get over this little hump and go back to work. And what do you really want to do in your heart of heart? What is your sublime destiny? Like mine was to be a speaker and then world's best-selling writer, and now an entrepreneur doing stuff that nobody else has done. And one little quick example, Elon Musk, they tried to put him out of business with Tesla and say, you're going to close down. He said, wait. I just worked out a deal with Medtronics. I'm going to make all the respirators that you need. And in 1 week's time, he's turned his whole business around and has made all the respirators we need. So there's a business hiding everywhere. Yeah. And it's the old, in our business, the success self-help business, acres of diamonds. Every one of us has acres of diamonds, and Chris will teach you that they're inside, not outside. So if you're looking outside, you're not going to find it. You got to look inside for your destiny.
I love that. I love it. Mark, I'm curious, when you had that vision of becoming a speaker, did you always have that? Or was there something that triggered that vision in your life? Like, walk me through that.
I think what happened is when I was in university, thank God, I went to exactly the right university. I went there because it was a party school, almost failed out. And then they said, well, we think you should leave. And I said, no, let me stay. And then I got pretty much a 4-point. I got serious, paid attention. But our brilliant president, Dr. Delight Morris at Southern Illinois University, I am a proud Saluki as one of my universities, but made us go to weekly seminars. And you got a little coupon every week, and you couldn't graduate unless you went to half-hour seminars. We had everybody come in there on both sides. Everybody from Jane Fonda as a celebrity anti-war to the general that's pro-war. So I got to hear everybody, and you had to do that. And he tried to make us comprehensivists. And I said, wow, someday I want to have the power to influence. And the goal in the world is that those of us that can need to be influencers of influencers. And that's what your show is doing so good, Julian. I want to praise you, compliment you, and applaud you for saying, hey, look, we got to turn around the thinking, because what my cliche is, what you think about comes about. The law of attraction is real simple. If you think negative thoughts, Crystal and I were talking just now in our either positivity or negativity, all of us got to read self-help action books. All of us got to watch positive podcasts. All of us got to, in Texas, Zig Ziglar would call in the old days, give yourself a checkup from the neck up.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's, I'm sort of a product of the, personal and professional development genre. And when I first had the opportunity to start doing this, I was like, wow, I can meaningfully contribute now and look at the people it's leading me to, so that certainly has been a big part in my life. So Mark, you shared a little bit about some of the experiences that have given you these insights about asking. Crystal, can you share a little bit about some of the experiences that you've had that have led you to believing that this works?
So I would say probably the biggest crisis in my life is what led me to the discovery that asking is so powerful, and it's a paradigm changer. So I was, high school was very easy for me. I graduated at age 16 and married my boyfriend, who was 5 years older, and found myself a couple of years later in a city by myself, divorced, with a baby on my hip, and absolutely no idea how I was going to support myself. So I applied for food stamps, and I went to the grocery store for the first time. And as I went to, check out and turn those food stamps over to the cashier, this question it was like time stood still. And I said, how did I get here? And it's like there was this spotlight on myself. I was looking at myself and I asked that question. I said, how did I get here? And then the next question that popped into my mind is, am I taking the easy way out, or am I tapping into all my resources to, do the best that I can and come out of this? And I knew what the answer was. I knew I wasn't tapping into my best resources. I knew I wasn't really giving this my best. And so all of that, those thoughts, those questions and answers came. And as I was handing those stamps over to the cashier, I was saying to myself, this will not be my future. And that was the last time I ever applied for food stamps. I said, I will never apply for these again. So I went home and I asked myself, what can I do? What am I qualified to do? And what is the easiest way to get a job tomorrow? So I had heard about Kelly Girls. It was like temporary service agencies. So I called them up. And then I realized there were 3 other temporary service agencies that I could apply to. So I applied for all of them because I thought, why not give myself a really good variety of jobs?
Right, yeah.
And I'll have more jobs that I like doing. So I started getting hired for, working in attorneys' offices and setting up displays at malls. And I started realizing that I had a knack and an aptitude for business. I liked it. For sales, I liked interacting with people. And so all of that led me to my next step. I decided to get my real estate license. And I also went to hit up some modeling agencies because a couple of people said, you should do some modeling. So I hit them up, asked for, and a year and a half later, I was working for the top home builder in our valley. I became the #1 salesperson. And I was making really good residual money on a couple of television commercials that I had done. I had full Screen Actors Guild benefits for myself and my little boy. So it's like, I really often reflected back on that moment, Julian, because I realized I could have gone one of 2 ways. I could have just collapsed into my own pity and worry and just accepted what was. but those questions really made me wake up, those questions to myself, and put me on a completely different path, literally. And that's there for everyone. It's not that I'm such a genius. It's just that I had this realization that to ask myself, and keep asking and asking and asking. And I think Mark and I have both have had the ability to do that, to be good askers, like challenge what's happening in your life by asking the questions. Because, isn't that what Socrates did at the time, right? He challenged the accepted norms. He believed that the other philosophers of the time, everyone was just supposed to accept everything they were saying. And he said, but it's not the truth. And he started asking, what is the truth? Why is this true? And we need to do the same thing about ourselves. Why can't I be this? What else is out there for me? What could I do that is much needed in the world right now? When I come out of this, how can I come out stronger and better? We all have this 2 or 3 weeks where we're just like, people feel like they're locked in their homes. But think about it. What if the virus wasn't here? And what if somebody just said, we're just going to give you a 3-week sabbatical. Go home. You'll be able to apply for money to get your bills paid. This is a time to get better. This is a 3 weeks of self-improvement. What if we thought of this as 3 or 4 weeks of self-improvement? Who do I want to be? How do I become that? What books do I need to read? How do I need to challenge myself right now to become that person that I've always wanted to be?
I love it.
Yeah.
So what is the actual process? Is it first the questions and then clarity about the destiny? Is it a combination of both? What is, if there is, a methodology to your book?
Okay, so let me do a story, and then I'll do the methodology at the end of the story. But we have a great story by a guy who's become our friend, Jim Stovall. And Jim Stovall is 19 years old. He's spent his whole life envisioning, I'm going to be a superstar in football. Now, that is similar to some of the patterns that people are suffering with that are watching us right now. And all of a sudden, he gets chosen. So he's big, he's strong, he's fast. And they go for the medical, and they say, look, son, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're going to be blind permanently in 6 months. So now his whole life, I get goosebumps telling you the story. That's true, because it is. So he goes totally blind, and he is suffering in a 9-by-12 room, isolated, sort of like now.
Kind of like we are today.
And all he's got is a telephone, a television, and a radio. And he used to love to watch movies, action flicks, and see the right hand get thrown. And he kept saying to himself, boy, somebody ought to do something about that. This is a question that's pivotal, because his parents say, hey, look, boy, what I want you to do is go to the blind meeting and find out how other blind people are handling it. Well, he goes, and all he does is see their griping. But he sits next to a woman who is a legal secretary that's blind, that does a great job because she can listen and is flawless. But he's sitting there and says, the question that asked, that pivoted and turned him out of crisis into great opportunity is critical. He says, somebody ought to do something, Kathy. And Kathy said, wait a second. This is a pivotal question. This is a life-changing question. Yeah. We're somebody. We can do something.
Right.
And now you won't know this next thing, but he created with Kathy narrative television. 14 million people pay $10 a month, like Netflix, to see what's happening in the action in movies and TV, and it goes around the world. One guy decided to make a difference. Now, I get introduced to him by a speaker named Charlie Tremendous Jones, who always went saying, life is tremendous, because he used to be negative, and he turned himself into positive, because people said, you're saying swear words. You got to do something different. So if somebody got married, they said, that's tremendous. If they got fired, that's tremendous. Whatever happened. So Tremendous calls us up and said, hey, look, this blind guy's written his book, the most important book I've ever read, called The Ultimate Gift. Would you endorse? I said, Charlie, I'm selling 15 million books a year. I can hardly have any time for myself. He said, look, you're going to love me in your prayers. Thank me in your prayers if you read this. I read Stovall's book. I loved it. I wrote the endorsement. I wrote the forward. I said, this book is so clear from a blind guy that can see better than anybody. This should be a movie. He makes it a movie. He makes $100 million on the movie. So what we're saying here is, for a lot of people hanging on by their fingernails right now, your adversity has got to be an advantage if you'll just turn around your perception and your thinking like he did. So the methodology is what Crystal and I keep saying is, And we wrote Ask, the bridge from your dreams to your destiny, because he didn't know his destiny was to create narrative TV. He didn't know that he could do that. And now in our book, the story ends by saying, I now write books that I can't read.
Wow.
I make movies that I can't see.
Wow.
Isn't that good?
That's amazing.
See, because everybody out there, like Crystal's story of her life turning around as a young 20-something, you know, and Jim turning around as also a 20-something. I never thought about that until right now.
Yeah.
Is it suddenly a lot of people are 20, 30, 50, 70, some are 80, and they're coming back to work. We're told that all the medical doctors are being reemployed and all the PAs and all the nurses, and that's what we have. And some of them are going to have breakthroughs. And in the virus land, we're told a lot of these people that have been thinking about how to solve viruses are coming back and doing new sequencing and all kinds of great stuff that is going to change our world permanently, positively for the better. And one last point, and we can go into this later, but I think IP, intellectual property, is it. And I've been in, for 44 years, the intellectual property business, trademarks, copyrights, you know, companies that do that kind of device making.
So Julian, I want to just say one thing for the listeners right now, because I think what you're asking is like, so we're sitting at home, how do we do this? Like, give me a simple way. So it's almost like you cannot mess up. You know, when you start asking a question, the main thing is to just start asking. But what I'd like to challenge everyone to do is sit down with yourself in a quiet place, get a piece of paper, and write the three channels through which you can ask. We determined are ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. So write those categories: ask yourself, ask others, ask God. And then start to write the questions down. What questions do you need to ask yourself? You know, what do I want to be doing? How could I improve myself during this time? What new opportunities are out there that I may not be seeing? All of these questions. And the more you ask, the more they'll start to come to you. And then start to answer those questions and write down your answers. Okay. And then as you determine those things and ask God, I mean, we always start with the ask God part, to be honest with you, because we really want to stay aligned with, you know, we know that this life that we're living is not just about us. Okay. We're here for the kingdom purpose, you might say, right? We're all in this together. I think when we feel the most isolated is when we live with the illusion that we're alone and that we're doing this alone, because we're not. We're doing this together, whether we realize it or not. So the recognition of that really helps us realize we're part of something so much bigger than ourselves. And I think this crisis is giving us this opportunity to see, like, we really need each other. I can't stand not being with my friends and not being able to give them a hug, but, you know, and be there for each other. So it's helping us appreciate a lot of things. But back to understanding, you know, whatever your religious, where I'm not telling you what your religious beliefs are, but really connecting with that, you know, vision that is greater than you. That's the ask God part. And then asking yourself those questions that we were just talking about. And then from those questions, when you start to get a vision of what you might want to do, what do you need to ask others? What do you need to find out? What do you need to learn? Could you learn it in a book? Do you need to read some books? What other people could you talk to? Even if it's just not even a favor, but just insight, wisdom, thoughts. You know, we are each other's best resource, and we need to remember that. We can't be afraid to ask. And it's interesting because we did a lot of research for the book, and people are, you know, afraid to ask. Harvard did a big study on this. They feel like asking too many questions makes them feel like they're, you know, stupid, like they'll be perceived as being stupid, uninformed, nosy, all of these things. But it's really just the opposite. In reality, when we're more curious, when we ask more questions, the perception of the person to whom we're relating is much more favorable. That person likes you more when you're more curious. They like you more. They have a higher opinion of you when you ask more questions. So it's almost counterintuitive. That's why we wrote this book, because we need to start being more curious about each other, with each other, asking for more, to be a resource to one another. And it's a magical process, really, when you start doing that. But do this deliberate exercise. Be very deliberate about it. You can't do it wrong. Just sit down and start writing your questions and let the answers come to you.
If there was one question our listeners could ask themselves right now to give them clarity on that next step, what do you think we should be asking ourselves?
Because we said we think the spiritual law runs the mental, which runs the physical, which runs the results. So my question would be, God, what's your destiny for me? Or what's my destiny, God? Either way, you can ask it backwards or forward. But the goal here is repeat it before you go to sleep. Get into that quasi-slumbering area of mind and 400 times say, God, what's my destiny? God, what's my destiny? God, what's my destiny? And you've got to have a pen, paper, notepad, whatever, next to the bed, because the answer is going to come. Because once you go into the depth of the soul, you came in here with a destiny destination. At least we believe that. And everybody all the master askers that we've met, whether it was Jim Stovall or that, once he was in the depths of his soul, he figured out what he did. When I was at the depth of my soul, I figured out I was supposed to be a professional speaker. And then my goal was secretly, I wrote down, I'm going to be world's best-selling author, which I'm now world's best-selling nonfiction author, according to Guinness Book of Records. So
awesome.
It doesn't matter what you write down. It matters that, first of all, you figure it out and ask Big G for the answer. And then once you put it down, it's definite certainty you'll get it. Because I said, when you write your goals, you set a goal and you get a goal, because it is a future destination that you're going to come to. And that's why Crystal said, come from the end result. What has to happen to have all that happen? And obviously I've done, 6,000 or 7,000 talks around the world to 7 million people, and in media, we had 2 #1 infomercials to tens of millions of people a night. So, and we did stuff that nobody else ever did. Like we were on 50 million Diet Coke cases a month for 6 months, because I asked for that real estate. And then the money, it was our book, Chicken Soup for the Romantic Soul, next to Nora Roberts' book. And we sold so many books. We raised enough money with Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, because people who drink Diet Coke read books, thank goodness. And we raised enough money to get 15,000 kids into Boys and Girls Clubs. That was a charity. But our book became #1 for 58 weeks in a row. So it takes new thinking. You can't do same old, same old. And what this crisis is causing is new opportunities for us individually and collectively. But we've got to collectively start thinking positive to keep our movement going forward.
I believe that for sure. A couple of days ago on LinkedIn, I posted a quote by C.S. Lewis, and he says that God whispers to you in your pleasures. He speaks in your conscience, but shouts in your pain. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. And I have very deep roots. What's that? It's quite the megaphone right now, right?
Right now.
Sorry, I didn't mean to walk over you.
So I can definitely connect with you when it comes to asking God, right? But let me ask you this. What is your process of discernment? Because sometimes I feel I have notions of what he wants me to do, but not certainty. What is your process of discernment to know for sure what he wants you to do?
Well, and I think some of that discernment comes from asking those questions of yourself. And one of the best questions, some of the best questions that you can ask, I think, are, and we have stories about each of these. What am I best at? What am I really best at? Start looking at your life. What are you really, really good at? And the second one is, what do I feel is my passionate purpose? When I'm doing it, what makes me feel passionate? And it's different for everybody. Some people are just incredible, like organizers. They're systems. They put together systems. That person might say, I'm the best organizer in the world. I'm able to figure out systems. I'm able to organize people, things, systems. Maybe I need to, would I be best working for a company in operations somehow? What is the best company? What is the company that is growing the most right now? When I get out of this, where would I want to be in my ultimate, with my skills, my talent, my ultimate world? Where is that? And it's a little bit different for all of us, but what am I best at? What am I passionate about in terms of really feeling good when I do it? And there's another thing. Sometimes we're good at something, but we don't really like it. Like I'm good at, keeping track of, I have a bookkeeper, but I'm good at like organizing my books and keeping track of, but I don't like it. So I'm not going to do that. I know that's not what I'm going to do, because it has to be a combination of those two things. What are you good at that you really love to do? What am I best at? What am I passionate about? And what do I really love doing? Where do all of those three things come together? And then with those things coming together, where are the greatest opportunities in my future? Because like Mark said, we have to keep looking forward as to how the world is changing, because it's changing, it's growing, it's morphing. If you're living in the paradigm of the past, you'll miss it. And it's always the people who are thinking forward and thinking ahead. You're like, oh, I wish I would have thought of that. It seems so easy, but we have to think ahead.
Yeah.
And the point is, and what will universe deem worthwhile and substantially pay for, a la what she's saying? And there's so much. There's more opportunity, more than ever before. Like, let's just give one of the quickest examples. The other day, we were talking to our friend who is in the soap business. He owns Ultra Soap Company, Harry Singer. And because the world is out of disinfectant soap, because for the first time ever, doctors are washing their hands for 20 seconds, singing the ABCs start to finish. They're using soap 20, 30 times a day, where they're doing it 2 or 3 times, and they just did it real quick and bent operation. So all the hospitals are out of soaps that are coming to Harry and asking for it. Well, then they said, well, hey, look, we're out of alcohol, and you need 70% alcohol to get rid of that. So he's put together a survival soap, antibacterial, antiviral package. And because nobody was doing alcohol, he was making it outside at his big plant in Kansas. But then he said, well, look, I'll just put a concrete wall that's explosion proof, because alcohol is very volatile. And now he's done it, put the packages together. And I said, look, Harry, you're helping these people. You can't keep up with the orders. You're back ordered already. You're hiring more people at a time when it's a disaster. Would you put an insert into every package advertising our book? He said, of course, you write it up. We wrote it up. Now he's putting it in. We're going to end up selling lots of books to people, because we say, look, you got the survival package. Now you got to have your mind ready for survival by knowing how to effectively, and using the science and art and philosophy of correct asking, to unfold your life as a lotus blossom that is forever blooming.
Wow. I love it.
I just made up that last part, but it sounds right.
Somebody needs to write that down, right? Well, what else from a content perspective do you want our listeners and viewers to know about the book?
Well, so in the book, people have a hard time. It's really funny, because asking is just such a simple tool, but it's one of the things that people have the hardest time with. And so we have a section called the 7 roadblocks to asking. And we really discuss those roadblocks, unworthiness, naivete, doubt, fear. There are all these things, and we give stories, really good examples. Pattern paralysis. We get stuck in these patterns where we think it has to be one way, and we never challenge it. And suddenly we're so miserable. We're not asking the right questions that would reveal why this is so messed up, this pattern that we're in, right? So we take you through all of those 7 roadblocks to asking. And it's a really important exercise for us to go through.
Let me give one example out of unworthiness. We're close friends with a guy named Bob Proctor. I've owned 2 companies with him, and Bob is older than us, but Bob is a brilliant, wonderful guy, good to watch online. But, years and years ago in the 60s, he is out of the Navy in Canada. He is working as a fireman, earning only $4,000 a year, and he's $6,000 in debt. He looks around at the bar at all these guys, and he said, he asked himself the question, what's happening here? And he said, they're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. This isn't the right plan. What do I do? So he says, who can I ask? Remember, ask yourself, ask others, ask God. He asked this guy named Ray, he said, what would you recommend? He said, what you got to do is read this book, do this stuff. Because he said, what do you want, Bob? And Bob says, I want to be wealthy like you. I want to be healthy like you. And I want to be happy. He said, it's simple, but you got to read Think and Grow Rich, which is a seminal book for everybody watching this. I mean, Bob has read it every day of his life. I've read it 200 times, so we're pretty clear on this. So Bob looks around and says, well, people say you make money washing windows. So he starts washing windows. He goes from being 4,000 upside down to making 25,000 a month. It was amazing to him. And then all of a sudden he's exhausted and he's passed out on the street in Toronto, and the police around him, first responders, and said, do you want us to take you to the hospital? He said, no, I'm just tired. I'll just let me go home and sleep. He goes home and asks himself, what is it that I'm doing wrong? He said, look, if I can't wash all the windows, I'm not going to wash any of the windows. He starts hiring people to wash windows, because he's a master. He's learned to be a master asker, a master salesman. Ends up building such a big business. He's big in Toronto and Montreal, Atlanta, Georgia, and London. I mean, he's now making millions. And he said, well, what did it? He said, I started listening to self-help action tapes by Earl Nightingale, Og Mandino, guys like me and guys like him now. And it's just amazing. Everyone needs to listen to something positive, like Chris was saying, on a full-time basis, and watch positive podcasts rather than negative podcasts, because we're getting inundated. The number one virus is a killer. The second virus is a negative mental attitude. It's a killer. The third virus will wreck the economy if we all don't figure out how to go back to work and make it safe. And we're part of a lot of initiatives on that are going to happen and unfold very quickly in the next couple of days. Yeah, I believe.
And then I wanted to mention another thing, Julian. We talk about in the book, how do you prepare to be a good asker? Because, there are ways that you do need to prepare, because this is foreign to us sometimes. First of all, you have to start with a belief. The first thing is belief. You have to start with a belief that your answer is there. It is there for you. You are going to find this answer. So as you're asking those questions, just know that you are going to find the answer. The second thing is action. I mean, we can't, sit in our living room with a blanket over our heads and think that, things are going to come to us. Action is always part of the question, because I read a book by Stuart Wildyet that says, if you want to become like a top 10 recording artist, don't sit in your living room. You can't tell me that if you don't even know who they are. Who are the top 10 recording artists? If you don't know, if you're not practicing your guitar, so you really have to immerse yourself in that quantum soup, so to speak, of the things that you want. When you start doing your questions and answers, start immersing yourself in the world that you are starting to see. Investigate, take action, find out what those things are. And the third thing is visualization. And Mark and I really love to start out with this. So when you're asking your question, do a visualization. And let's add this to the assignment that we said that you're going to write down today. So do a big visualization with your eye. What does it look like? What I'm doing, what I'm seeing, after you start to get some clarity, what does that look like? And start to describe it. I'm seeing this many clients a month, or, I'm selling this much of my product or this much of my service. I'm growing by this much every month, and literally just describe the perfect scenario. And so start with the end in mind, perfect visualization of exactly what you want from life. And then work backwards. Through questions. How did I get there? What did I do? Who did I call? What did I ask? And as you start to peel that back, it is a magical process. I promise you, if you really do this, if you really commit to this, things will start to move and change in your life in the most positive way.
So let me just hitchhike on that. When Chicken Soup was starting, I did a set Dave's called Visualizing is Realizing, and I interviewed the 101 best book authors, fiction, nonfiction, but I didn't ask them how to write. I knew how to write. Dr. Canfield knew how to write. That wasn't our issue. Our issue was, how did you market and sell more books than anybody? Scott Peck or Wayne Dyer or Barbara DeAngelis or Danielle Steele or whoever. We interviewed everybody. And what we discovered was what they did. And I wrote it down. We put it on little stickies and we put it on the wall and visualized it. And we wrote a business plan. But one of the ideas was, like, we've done the same thing now with our book, Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. And we took out the New York Times where Scott Peck had been #1 with A Road Less Traveled 58 Weeks. We whited out his name, put in Mark and Jack's name and Chicken Soup. And so every time you went in the bathroom mirror at our respective homes or the offices, every mirror had it. So you saw it constant times during the day. So we branded it into our brain, etched into the fabric of our being. Now, at the time we had 144 rejections. So everybody said, hit the road, Jack. I said, look, it's okay if you don't like him, but I am a nice guy. And no, Jack's great. The point is we decided that we were going to make it no matter what. So once we became #1, everybody said, well, we always thought you would. Well, no, they were critical. They made fun of us. They teased us. They ridiculed us. They harassed us for putting that on the mirror, because, we'd have people coming to our respective offices, hiring us or doing business or wanting to do deals. And they go, that is strange. But everybody needs to put their goal on the mirror. Like she said, at the end result, what would it be if you hit your destiny, your ideal, what you're passionately purposeful about, what is your magnificent obsession?
I love it. I love it. Mark and Crystal, close us out with one more piece of advice that really intersects all of your life's experience, what you talk about the book, and the mission of our podcast today, which is to inspire the entrepreneurial spirit in the country. Close us out with one more piece of advice.
I would like to do that. And that is, I want everyone to go to Amazon and get a copy of Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. Now, that's a big ask for us, but if you'll send it to reception@markvictorhansen, we're going to invite you to future seminars, future podcasts. We'll send you a signature signed thing, so when you got the book, you'll be able to have it. Just reception@markvictorhansen. If you buy 100 or more books from us, do you want to tell them what we'll give them?
Well, we're planning a one-day event for people. We have people who are buying 100 or more books, some 300. And we're doing a really special exclusive one-day event for those people. So we're going to do a real deep dive into this asking journey together here in Arizona as soon as we can travel. Right. And it's going to conclude with a lovely dinner at our home. So we're excited about that. But at the very least, we hope you can at least get a copy of the book for yourself and maybe for someone else that you love, because the journey, this asking journey, is such a simple tool. Everyone can use it. And I really want to stress, I think the one piece of advice is you have everything inside of you right now. You have what it takes. So don't panic. Go inside yourself. Do this process, do it very deliberately, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep going with the process. Don't give up. Keep asking and keep asking and asking. Those answers are inside of you. And I'm excited to start to hear, once this book is out on April 28th, for people to come back to us and tell us their asking stories, because I know there will be a lot of amazing successes. And that's what's important to us.
And Julian, I know you and we give permission to every one of these people to become masters at asking, right, and unfold a life that is beyond sublime, with opportunity, promotion, advancement, excitement, and them becoming no limit, fully functioning, self-actualizing human beings.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You guys are my heroes, man. Seriously. We'll make sure to leave a link in the show notes with your specific link, if you could email that over to me. How can everyone connect with you on social, support you, connect with you? Tell us all that.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from everybody. I'm at Crystal Dwyer Hansen on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Crystal Dwyer, DW, it's a tongue twister, DWYER Hansen. And then, of course, Mark Victor Hansen, Facebook, Twitter, Insta, LinkedIn, all of the platforms. He's there under Mark Victor Hansen. So please reach out to us. I love hearing from people. It's my lifeblood as a transformational coach. Like, my food is like hearing people's success. And yeah, so I love that. So let's stay in touch and prop each other up during this time. We're going to get through this better. We'll come out better than ever.
I love it. Mark and Crystal, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I know our listeners and viewers have as well. So everyone else, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Pathways to Success. As always, make sure to subscribe, comment, and share. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.